Well, we'll get started. The topic today is going to be about future technologies and trends by myself, Tom Kreuzer. First, a little bio about myself. I do have or had the personalized license plate PC guy. I did get rid of it, I think, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I didn't want to make myself a target where people thinking there's computers in the car and will break into the car and get computers. I'm the son of John Kreuzer, who lives here at Carondelet, and John's in back there. I worked 40 years at 3M in the information technology. I'm an officer and presenter in the 3M Personal Computing Club for over 35 years. In fact, I just gave a presentation, I mentioned 11:30 to 12:30 today. We one time had 1,200 members in the club. I do offer free computer help to anyone with questions or problems. Oh, I have to get my last deal in there. I'm thrifty, I'm not cheap. So if there's an inexpensive or multiple options there, I tend to lean towards the more affordable option. Our topic next month in January will be January 24th, and it'll be held in the auditorium, and it'll be on scams and cyber threats. We covered this, I think, last year. I forgot that was in January or February, but we'll update a few things, and then we'll also go into a little more detail on some of the scams there. Also, along with my sister and brother-in-law, we put on the Fix-It Clinic. So if you do have broken items, small appliances, lamps, electronics, things like that, that'll be coming up January 29th. And you can sign up at the front desk for a slot, a 15-minute slot, and we can fix most things, but there are a few things that we don't end up fixing. But check that out. These presentations that I do, I am recording it, and the handouts are all available out on the Carondelet website, so CarondeletVillage.org, and out there's a tech help menu item, and in there you'll see a calendar showing these events. We're also listed on Wellzesta, so you can look it up on that, but Wellzesta doesn't have the past meetings and things like that, so you can use that. Okay, let's get to our topic, which is future tech and trends. PCs and devices over the past 50 years have evolved from a desktop, big desktops with limited capabilities, to now being almost everywhere in everything that we do. Where is it headed, and what should we do? That's the question for everybody. And hopefully you'll see some answers here. It's been a wild ride with no signs of stopping or slowing down. So new products come out, new versions of phones, new versions of tablets, new smart TVs, you name it. The devices are just coming out all the time. Today we have many choices when it comes to what devices do we use. There isn't one device that's going to work for everybody. So picking the right one is like picking a motor vehicle. What works for one person or one person does not work for everyone to do everything. So you wouldn't want to have a Mini Cooper there and try and haul a whole bunch of 4x8 sheets of plywood. You want the right vehicle for the right, and you wouldn't want to take a Mini Cooper, let's say, on a vacation trip and try and sleep in it. So just like there's the right vehicle for the right purpose for the right person is different for everybody there. What you don't want to end up is this poor person down here. I don't know how well this would do on the highway at high speed there. You might get some looks from people. The first task when you're looking for the right device, or what do, is you need to define your needs. And to find the right device, you define your needs, and then that'll help you decide if the device that you're looking for is going to meet your requirements there. This is a little chart, and in the 3M Personal Computing Club over the last 25 years, I do an annual survey, and I ask the people in the club probably about 120 different questions. And one of the questions in there is asking them, how many smartphones do you have in your household? How many tablets do you have in your household? And this is an interesting, the smartphones and the tablets, I just started asking that question in 2014. And at that time, phone usage, smartphone usage was 61% of the people were using a smartphone in 2014. As of the last year I did the survey, 100% of the people in the club were now using a smartphone, because prices of plans have come down, the phones themselves have come down. Everyone has one. The data plans and devices are dropping. We have a powerful computer with your phone there, and you have it with you 7 by 24. The plan that I currently have is $15 a month. So everyone can afford it. A Samsung phone that I'm currently using is $199. So prices are very reasonable. Tablets are another device that has certainly been going up over the years, and we started out at about 60% in 2014, and we're now at 83% of the members have at least one tablet there. Personally, I think this number should be 100%, because just like the smartphones coming down in prices, you can get tablets starting at $30. So, and tablets have their use. I use my tablet at home quite a bit. I use it when I go in my garage, when I go in my workroom, when I'm doing stuff around. I use it as in some cases as a second TV. So if I'm watching a football game, I can have one on my tablet and one or more on the TV. So you can use it for all kinds of uses there. And again, the prices have come down to the point. I actually did just buy a brand new iPad last month after Thanksgiving. They were on sale. You could buy an iPad, the 9th generation, for $229. So prices and capabilities are very reasonable there. This is another trend from a survey that I do. This is the percent of time. So I ask people, how much time do you spend on your tablet, on your smartphone, and on your desktop? And that's a percentage of time that you're using them. So do you use your desktop 100% and you don't ever use a tablet or a smartphone? Or which device do you use when you're looking for things and doing functions on a computer? And this is the results. The smartphone, currently people estimate that they spend 30% of their time on their smartphone using that, 15% on their tablet, and 55% on a computer, whether it's a desktop or a laptop. And I mentioned here, these numbers keep going down for the computer. In 2014, the computer was used 81% of the time. So people were doing most of their browsing of the internet, looking at email, doing things like that, all from their laptop or desktop. And now they're using their tablets, they're using their smartphones. And they continue to be used more and more. So this percent of time spent on a laptop, or even the need for a laptop. Some of the members of the PC Club don't even have a desktop or a laptop anymore. They just use their phone and a tablet. And when they have to type a lot of things, you can get a Bluetooth keyboard that connects either to your phone or a tablet there. And so the tablet can be like a laptop. So there's lots of options and things like that that people can do. Okay, next we'll talk about some of these devices, and we'll mention what they're really good for and what they're not so good for. And one of them is the phone. Well, the smartphone. The smartphone is obviously the choice for if you want to make telephone calls. So it being a phone is the major advantage there. It's small, it's portable, low upfront cost. Sometimes you're paying for the phone through a cell phone plan from a AT&T or a T-Mobile. But you can also do things like music, video, or a camera, and there's millions of apps out there. I almost was going to include a picture that I just saw a couple days ago, and it was kind of interesting. It said, this is how we looked back in 1970, and this is how we look today. And in 1970, it showed a person, and that person had a radio and a boom box and a camera around their neck, and it had a tape player, and it had all of these things, and he was carrying all these things. And then the next picture just showed him holding a smartphone, because you've got so much power in the palm of your hand with that smartphone that it's replaced all these other devices that we used to have and found useful there. Now, some of the cons of a phone is there is a cost per month for the data plans, and usually limits to connect to the internet there. The display at most is 6 inches, and so reading stuff isn't the easiest to do. It has limited storage, but in most cases you can fix that limited storage by using cloud storage or up on the internet. And the models change every year. Apple's coming out with a new phone every year, so if you buy one, you kind of have to expect to, if you want to stay current and get the latest features and functions, you have to be prepared to upgrade frequently there. Content creation can be hard to do on a phone. And content creation is the act of either typing, or let's say you're editing photos or editing a video or things like that. That can be hard to do because of the small screen, usually no keyboard or mouse, and small display. Another con is that they can be lost or stolen, or if you drop them, they can break. Okay, let's compare that to a tablet. What are some of the pros of the tablet? Well, they're better for content consumption than a phone. You have a larger screen, so browsing the web, looking at your email, watching movies, playing music, playing games is usually better on a tablet there. You have the bigger display, and the displays usually run 7 inches to 10 inches. They're portable, they're lightweight, easier to use than a phone. A phone, because of its size and because of the small keyboard, a lot of people have trouble with that. And similar to the phone, you have millions of apps that you can use. Some of the cons of the tablet are content creation still isn't that easy. Most of them don't come with a keyboard, although you can add a Bluetooth keyboard. Usually don't have a mouse, and the display is smaller than a laptop or a desktop where you've got a larger display. Some of the models, if you want to be connected while you're away from home or not connected to a Wi-Fi connection, it's going to cost you a data plan, or you're going to have to pay for that connection. Smaller display than the laptop or desktop, limited storage, but again, if you store your documents or most of your stuff up on the cloud, that doesn't have to be a problem. Limited camera capabilities. Tablets usually don't have as good a camera as a smartphone or some of the other devices, and so a little limited there. Another is Chromebooks. Some of the pros of the Chromebook is the low cost. A Chromebook start at about $150, and you can get a good Chromebook for $300 to $600. Chromebooks aren't running the Apple operating system, and they aren't running the Windows operating system. So they're a smaller operating system, Chrome operating system. So the hardware requirements in terms of memory and CPU are much, much less. That's what makes it cheaper. They can make cheaper machines that still run as fast and can do as many things as what an Apple or a Windows machine can do. They usually have fast startup, usually just a matter of seconds. The batteries last longer than some of the other devices there. And recently they changed or extended the life of these Chromebooks to at least 10 years from when they were manufactured. So in the past, these, well, you can see one of the cons for the Chromebooks is they'd have an end-of-life date, and that was usually 5 years or 8 years, and then the manufacturer would no longer update the operating system on that device. And so you had limited life to the device itself. Some of the other cons of the Chromebook, limited software, so it can't run every app that you can in an iPhone or an Android machine, but it can run the most popular ones. You do, in order to use it, you pretty much need a connection to the internet, whether that's Wi-Fi, so you running programs and storing data is usually done on the cloud there. And so that storage, limited storage, but if you're storing up on the cloud, you're storing it up there. And then the last one, limited hardware ports. So they don't have many plugins on the side to add devices that some of the other laptops have. These are the pros of a laptop, whether it's a Windows laptop or an Apple Macintosh laptop. They're good for content creation because of the keyboard and because of the trackpad or things like that. They're good for that. They're portable. You can use it room to room, outside, take it to work, take it to classes, take it to the library. You can travel with it. The screen is bigger than a tablet, usually 12 inches to 17 inches. You can get full-size keyboards. They require less space to set up and use. So especially if you're in an apartment and it's not that big of an apartment, you know, a laptop folded up that takes next to no space and easy to use there. They all come with a built-in webcam and microphone. So that's nice for doing calls, video calls. And if you need more ports and things like that, you can add a docking station to give you more capabilities. Some of the cons of a laptop, they cost more when you're buying or to upgrade than a desktop. They tend to have slower CPUs, and that's so that the batteries last longer. They don't run them as fast because the fastest CPUs usually use the most electricity, and so to conserve electricity, they usually run slower there. They do have limited resolution. Frequently on the laptop, you may have a limit of 1K resolution, whereas most people on a bigger display want 4K resolution or to be able to see better there. They usually have smaller and slower hard drives. Memory costs more for them to upgrade if you need to upgrade memory. Limited internal expandability because they're so thin, they're not made to add additional things inside. They're more costly to repair, and they're easy to lose or steal. And usually it can be less comfortable to use, whether it's the keyboard. Some keyboards on laptop are condensed versions of keyboards, which if you use multiple machines, it'll kind of throw you off. Your touch, if you're a good touch typist, it'll throw you off there. So now we'll talk about the advantages of a desktop. So desktops are still being sold. All these devices are obviously still being sold, and there isn't one device that's going to work for everybody, but certainly desktops still have their use. Some of the pros of the desktop are the performance. So speed-wise, that's going to be your fastest machine. Cost, it's going to be your best value because they don't have to try and cram it into a small space or make concessions to fit everything in there. You usually have a bigger display, so most people have a bigger display than the laptop may have a 15-inch or a 17-inch display. These usually start at 17 inches and go up. Some people will have, well, we'll talk about it, multiple displays, and so you have lots of options in the display option. The user interface, because it can be a full keyboard and a mouse or any device that you're using there, that makes it more easier to use for most people. Also, it usually has more hardware ports and expansion. Faster drives, whether they're solid-state drives or hard drives or DVD drives, than what you see on the other devices. The cons, they're not portable. They take up more physical space. So if you don't have a whole lot of space, that's a problem with a desktop. They also generate more heat, more noise, and tend to weigh more than a laptop or other devices. Okay, let's talk about the future. So that's kind of the trends and devices. Which device is best for you? It's usually a combination of devices. Like I say, in that survey, we saw that people will use a laptop or a desktop, and they'll also use a tablet, and they'll also use a smartphone. So most people can't get by with just one device to do everything. Now we'll talk about the future and what's going on there. Well, one of the futures is Microsoft Windows itself. Windows 10 came out in 2015, and that is set to expire in 2025. And so if you have older machines running Windows 10, or some people even have Windows 8 still running, you need to replace those laptops and desktops, especially the ones that are incapable of running Windows 11. And unless you bought a machine within probably the last 3 years, most of those laptops or desktops are incapable of running Windows 11. So Windows 11 came out a couple of years ago, and usually Microsoft supports a version for 10 years, so that still has a number of years left on it. And Windows 12 is set to come out next year, so Windows 12 is coming out. And we won't go into too much there, but if you have a Macintosh, it's a similar type of deal. There's always new versions coming out, new capabilities, and when they come out with this, that also means that some of the older versions are no longer supported, And if you've got old hardware or old versions, you want to make sure they're updated. This is an interesting chart that kind of shows the 40 years of microprocessor trends within the industry here. And if we go back to 1970 there, the CPUs that were used in the computers back then certainly were very limited to what we are used to today. This is giving you an idea of the number of transistors. So this brown color here is showing the number of transistors over the years, how it's changed. In 1970, the CPU, you had a limited number of transistors, which meant that limited things that could be done there. As we move forward to the future, you'll see up here the number of transistors, and actually a good example is the Macintosh. If you've heard of the Macintosh M3 CPU, that's their latest CPU that they came out with. Well, that CPU has, let me see here, maybe I have it here. So the CPUs and that get smaller, faster, and cheaper over the years. Oh yeah, here it is. So the Apple M3 Max has 16 CPUs on it. It has 40 GPUs. GPUs stand for graphic processing units. So those are dedicated processing just to display things, to convert and display things. And it has 92 billion transistors on it, just in that little CPU that's inside the machine. And if we go back to the 70s there, you were looking at a CPU that had one CPU and had a handful of transistors in there. So the capabilities have just exponentially gone up over the years there. So the CPUs get better. What's also getting better? The displays. Displays, ideally, we get rid of monitors themselves. Because whether it's a tablet or whether it's a laptop or a desktop, the display ends up taking up quite a bit of space and is limited in some sizes there. But what you're seeing now is developments to make these displays flexible. So one of the options for phones and tablets is to make foldable phones, so the display can unfold to be bigger there. But long term, that really isn't the best solution either. The best solution tends to be one where instead of you having physically a display, the information just being presented right out in front of you in your line of sight. No physical device there. And one of the ways that they do that today is Apple just came out with its Apple Vision Pro, which are goggles that you wear. There's also MetaQuest has goggles that you wear here. Google Glass came out several years ago. It makes a projection like it's out in front. And this is where we'd eventually like to be. You notice he doesn't have a device on his head, but yet he has all these controls and capabilities that are at his fingertips there. So in the future, the things go away. We're dealing with virtual and augmented reality. So VR is virtual reality, AR is augmented reality. If you heard about the Apple Vision Pro, the Vision Pro does what's called augmented reality because you can see out through the goggles there. So the display will display not only it'll look like it's out in front of you there, but you can also, I could see this room and I could see the people in there. So you can kind of see both of them and interact with stuff at the same time. And so there's big changes ahead to try and get rid of these screens. It's not going to happen overnight. The Apple Vision Pro is really just a geeky tool right now. Costs $3,500, so it's not cheap, and there's not a lot that you can do with it. But again, this is the technology and the direction that it's going to get rid of these screens and replace it with something. The next thing that's on the horizon and changing is keyboards. Keyboards have never been a good way to get input to these various devices. It's much better if you can use voice. If you can use voice or hand gestures or movement to control things and pick out things. The other thing that's happening is artificial intelligence. Intelligence is also a big part of this because artificial intelligence can predict what you want to do next and what you want to work with, so that let's say a menu today that you have to go through several levels and click on a bunch of things and eventually get to what you want to do. Let's say it's a Word, you're creating a document and you want it to look a certain way. Well, the packages are capable of doing these things. It's just that in some cases, the way to do it is buried under menus or clicks or things like that a lot of people don't know about or can't find. Well, if the artificial intelligence can do that automatically for you, that just it gives you better control of what you're creating, and yet you didn't have to interact that much. Okay, another trend that's happening is in all these devices, small size and cost. So we talk about smart devices where they're everywhere and built into everything. We have smart homes, we have cars, watches, robots, and you have this thing called the Internet of Things, the IoT. That's only possible to have that because the price for these CPUs, the price of memory, the connection to a Wi-Fi, so the connectivity of everything keeps getting cheaper and cheaper every day. So some of the smart devices that I talked about before, you can get smart plugs for less than $5 a piece. Well, that plug has more computing power in it than what the first computers had. And yet you're able to buy that for pennies, literally pennies there. So the devices get smaller, costs get cheaper, that they can start building these things into all kinds of devices. Okay, some more things in the future. We talked a little bit about Windows and its new versions, and Apple comes out with its new versions. Well, eventually, excuse me, got a little tickle in my throat. Eventually, the operating system is not going to be important, and it can coexist with all these other devices. So in order to have all these other devices work with each other, excuse me, they aren't all going to be running the Apple operating system or the Windows operating system. We won't care what operating system they're running. They're just a specific function that they're providing. Batteries are important if we want to be able to take some of these devices with us, portability and things like that. So longer life batteries, wireless charging, smaller, all of that improves every day. Always connected, whether it's getting notifications or sending in information. Well, we've got Wi-Fi, in a lot of places, but it's not everywhere. One of the solutions to that is they've been talking about 5G for the last few years. 5G is the 5th generation of cell data connectivity. So it's not 5 megahertz connectivity. It's just the 5th generation in the cell phones. The cell phones went through the 1st generation, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now we're into 5G there. 5G provides better coverage and faster coverage. Well, if you want to have self-driving cars, and these cars have to communicate with each other about, gee, we're going to be changing the lane here, and half a mile, let me in, kind of a thing, and self-driving cars and things like that, there has to be a way for all this stuff to communicate. And one of the ways is through 5G, being able, because you aren't going to, on the freeway, you aren't going to set up a Wi-Fi network. And so the connectivity is a big infrastructure that has to be there for a lot of things to take place. Excuse me, I mentioned this. If you've been with computers quite a number of years, all we had in the past was we'd go out and we'd buy software programs. Well, software programs are slowly dying away, and they're being replaced by apps and the internet itself. So the software resides up on the internet. You don't have to download software to your computer. If there's a new update, it's automatically updated on the internet. So there's lots of advantages to doing that. The thing, in order to be able to run that software from the internet and things like that, you have to have a very fast connection, because if let's say having software on your laptop or desktop runs 10 times faster than what I could running it through the internet, people are going to say, are you crazy? I don't want to use the internet. I want to use my laptop. It's much faster. But if it's the same speed, running it on the internet and not having to load it on your computer, suddenly that's a better option for most people. Storage, whether it's files that we create or pictures that we want to share or videos that we want to share, used to be everything was local. Whatever you could fit on floppy disks, on local hard drives, things like that. Now it's a case of we're gradually moving all of that stuff to the cloud, because if you are using multiple devices like a phone and a tablet and a laptop, if you just have it on a single device and then want to start using that other device and see that document that you were working on, it has to be up on the cloud. It has to be, you want to share it and you want to have access to it from any device at any time, and the cloud's the solution for that. The one that we've all heard about in the last year, it's been in the news the last year, certainly a lot, is artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it's been there. If you recall the presentation, I talk about artificial intelligence as a term has been here. I think it was coined in 1952. And there's been systems since then that do artificial intelligence. Google search has always used artificial intelligence. And so there's a number of things that are AI. It's just that one of the special ways of doing AI was developed and released a little over a year ago, ChatGPT. ChatGPT was software where you could load tons of data from the internet, and it would organize it such that you could ask it any question and then it'd be able to spit out an answer. And so that type of capability, the ChatGPT, is just a little over a year old, but you're seeing more and more things loading data into these implementations and websites and things like that to make things easier and provide more data for everybody. And it's going to be, as we talked about in the AI presentation, it's going to be replacing a number of jobs that currently people are doing because, frankly, the computers can do the job better than what the humans can do today. Okay, another trend there is working from home or anywhere in the world, and we especially saw that during COVID, companies not wanting people in at work, and they found out that, well, people can be pretty productive working from home, and if you can work from home, that means that if I'm a company in Minnesota, I don't have to just take the employees from here in Minnesota, I can hire people from all around the world. So that can be a tremendous advantage. Can also be a disadvantage because if I live in Minnesota and I'm competing for a job, I'm potentially competing for a job with everybody else in the world. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, but the future is you can work on these various places. The future, autonomous vehicles. So the 2020s of this decade, we're seeing cars, trucks, drones, and ships becoming more commercially viable with these autonomous driving or self-driving there. And the way they get better is they have more cameras in them, more sensors in there. They have bigger CPUs. They're collecting more data. They're understanding things all around. And because everything that we've talked about with the CPUs and the connectivity and things like that, it just makes them more and more powerful to be able to do this self-driving. And I get a kick, I think I told this in the AI presentation, of a number of people that will say, well, I'm deathly scared of self-driving cars and things like that. And I go, well, have you flown in an airplane? Every airplane is a self-driving airplane. The pilot is not sitting there steering the plane. You've been flying in self-driving airplanes for 15, 20 years already. People don't say, oh, I don't want to fly there because it may crash. It's been proven and shown that the programs that are used for the self-driving planes make it safer than a human actually trying to fly that. And that's what you're going to see in the cars and trucks and these various things as it goes on. Doesn't mean that a self-driving car is not going to get into an accident. So some people will say, well, I heard about the self-driving car that ran into a bridge abatement and people were killed. Well, what you have to do is you have to say, is a self-driving car safer than a human driving a car? And humans have accidents. We've never gotten, there's no such thing as no accidents at all. Humans have accidents at quite a high rate. So it's not a high bar that a self-driving car has to act at. So we'll see that certainly happening more and more down the road here. Security. We all want to be secure. Security has really changed over the years because we have more cameras than ever. We have more alerts. We have more monitoring being done. And that's a double-edged sword because is this big brother, who's monitoring, who has access to the data? Hopefully our politicians and the different groups will figure out, the best way to move forward there. But even if the government is still struggling with that, individually we can take advantage of some of these things, whether it's security cameras or monitoring or things like that too. home automation because of the smart devices that can be in refrigerators and heating and cooling, and the refrigerator can monitor that you took milk out of the refrigerator and the milk is only half full, so maybe it's time to order milk. And it can create your lists or automatically order or do things. So there's thousands of things that can be done to make our life better and easier there. The Internet of Things, the IoT, we talked about lots of smart devices. You start connecting them together. And so that gives a lot of potential there. If I have a smart refrigerator and it knows everything that I have in the refrigerator and what I have in the cupboards there, all of a sudden I ask my home, I say, I'm bringing a friend home for dinner tonight. What could I cook for dinner? And it'll know, based on what you have, this is what you could cook. So there's all kinds of capabilities that we have there, given the artificial intelligence, given the collection of the data and things like that. Data mining. So data mining is, I don't know, are people familiar with the term a little bit, or? Okay. Data mining, the companies collect different pieces of information, and an example would be your name and your telephone number. Well, that's a small little piece of information, but if I can take your name and your telephone number and I can start adding other pieces of information, oh, you have a dog, oh, you have 5 kids, or you're related to this person, or you do this. That's combining information together and creating links to all this data here, and that's what data mining is putting that data together there instead of these independent single sources of data which you may find today. Schools and education. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of people don't know what to do with all this technology and all the trends that are going on. What do you teach? What are the jobs of the future? What do we start replacing some of this stuff with self-paced courses? What courses do you teach? Because if somebody wants a job, maybe half of that job can be replaced or done with part of AI, so that person may just have to understand how to interact with the AI to do a particular job. So understanding these things, lots of questions there. The Internet itself, we need better filters, whether it's to remove scams, fake information, and to customize your needs. I always say that the Internet is the best and the worst, because some people will do a Google search and you can prove any point in the world. One of the points that I bring up with people is I say, I can prove to you that the world is flat, because I'll do a Google search and it'll reference these magazine articles or these other websites or blogs, and that doesn't mean that the world is flat. It means that somebody put some piece of information out there. And unfortunately today, people think just because it's out there that it's true, and so you have misconceptions on what is good data, and if you don't know some of those things, certainly scams and fake information just continues to grow. Doctor visits certainly have changed, and that certainly happened during COVID also. Remote visits, testing, and rehab. Well, if you have an Apple Watch or almost any of the fitness trackers now, you have a ton of health information that's on your wrist, whether it's your heartbeat, whether it's oxygen levels, or whether you're a diabetic. You have all kinds of capabilities that we didn't have 20 years ago, 30 years ago. satellite and 5G, faster, more stable connections, connecting devices. We have access to much more data there. TV streaming and on demand. It used to be, if you were lucky, you had ABC, CBS, NBC, the big three there. Well, now, literally, you have almost millions of content out there, channels out there to find data and stream information. So lots of capabilities out there. Wearables, I talked about smart watches there. Started with fitness trackers, and now we have stuff that makes our lives healthier, safer, and more efficient because it can monitor a lot more things. Another thing is what's called blockchains and distributed ledgers. These are mechanisms that provide super secure methods for storing, authenticating, and protecting data that can revolutionize many aspects of business. You may have heard of them in terms of cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency uses blockchains, but blockchains aren't cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is just utilizing technology, blockchain technology. But blockchains can be very valuable for sending and receiving information between various companies, various countries, various people, because if one part is lost, you don't lose the information, and you're safe and secure that you were trying to get something from point A to point B, that's what got between the 2 points there. So there's security and functionality that these provide. Robots. So in addition to AI is not robots. Robots can use parts of AI, but robots, usually motors and solenoids and things like that, they're getting more and more intelligent. They're learning to respond to their environment, performing tasks without human intervention, which is a good thing there. So the future is going to be more and more of these devices. Today we touched the tip of the iceberg with what's coming and what's going, but hopefully covered enough in the trends. And this is a little graphic, I like this. The future's so bright we gotta wear shades. And it really is the case of, we think everything's been invented that needs to be invented so far. We don't even know what it's gonna look like in 5 years or 10 years. Just look at how much it's changed in the last 5 or 10 years. We just know that things are going to get smaller, things are going to get cheaper, things are going to get integrated. And to me, it's an exciting time because if you look over my lifetime in IT of 40 years or 50 years, we've gone from 0 to 1 billion miles per hour in terms of where we came from and the capabilities. When the first computers I bought, my first computer, well, actually I had it before the Apple even came out. I had a computer, and that was a kit computer, and building it that way. Then when you had things like the IBM come out, the IBM came out, and if you wanted one of the first versions of the IBM computer with a printer and a monitor and things like that, that was list price, that was close to $9,000. At the time, I was working at 3M as a programmer. I was making $16,000. That was almost a year's salary there. And the way that you buy that computer, I had a brother that was working at IBM at the time, brother-in-law, and he got the IBM employee discount, half price, 50% off, which is great. But they wouldn't even sell it to you as a single purchase. They did employee purchase plan spread out over 3 years because most people could not afford it, and it was basically you were buying it because you were a hobbyist or that. It wasn't because you were going to save money. It cost you a fortune there. So you think of how far things have come over the years, and it just amazes me, and where we're going to be a year from now, and 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, it's going to change. It's going to change so much there. Just like the CPUs and the billions of transistors on this little wafer that's that big there. Well, who knows where it'll be in another 5 years or that. Okay, that concludes it. Questions, comments? Nobody knows what's going to happen. Otherwise, I get people that will ask me, what should I invest in? What companies? And I said, investing is not a sure thing. Nobody can look into the future and say, oh, buy Apple today and that would have been the one that you want, or buy this or buy that. In fact, I had one person after I'd given my AI presentation, he said, well, have you ever tried AI, asking AI what stocks to buy there? And I said, well, most of the models out there are loaded with data up to a year ago, so they haven't loaded the data in the last year. So any analysis that you're doing of stuff is limited to what it is. And the AIs will come back and they'll say investing is very speculative and doing things, and it won't give out a prediction. It's kind of like saying, taking your phone to the casino and saying, well, what should I bet on? On the roulette wheel, what number is going to come up there? It doesn't know. So things are changing there. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
I have a question, I guess. I have an old iPhone, 5E, it's very small, and MacBook Air. And one thing I like about it is that they communicate appointments, binders, that sort of thing. If I were to replace the iPhone with, say, a Samsung, could I somehow link it with the MacBook Air?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question so that the people listening to it, either on the TV or later, can hear it. The question was, he has an iPhone 5 and a Mac, and if he was to replace that, is he still going to be able to get at the information, the contacts, calendars, things like that? Yeah, there's a couple of different things going on there. One of the things going on is nowadays with these various devices, you're usually making a choice of where you want to store your information. Is it with Apple? Is it with Microsoft? Is it with Google? Those are the major platforms. Each of those has its own mail system, has its own calendar, has its own contacts list. You can use any of them on any phone. So if I have an iPhone, I could use the Microsoft Mail, and I could have my calendar on Microsoft and things like that. Usually it's easier to use the mail system and the email and the contacts on the platform that you're using. So certainly when somebody says, I have all my equipment as Apple, then it's an easy choice of saying, you're going to use iCal, you're going to use the Apple products to put your information in. All of these packages, whether it's Google, IBM, Apple, allow you to export your data and bring it into another package. So it's not hard. It's usually not that hard to go from one package to another. It's a change because obviously the menus are a little bit different or their terminology is a little bit different. But the basics of data being able to move from one to another is usually not that difficult to do. So it can be done there. The question becomes, because I get that question quite a bit, is, what do you recommend? What device do you recommend? And just like I went over today with the cars, there isn't one recommendation that works for everybody. If you have friends and family that are all Apple devices and things like that, then frequently it's best to stay with Apple, because if you're going to ask them questions or things like that, they're going to be able to answer it easier than if all of a sudden you go to a Samsung. But can you take your contacts? Can you do everything that you were doing on the iPhone on a Samsung? Yes, yeah. And I have kind of discussions within the 3M Personal Computing Club. We have a Macintosh special interest group, a Macintosh SIG, and I sit in on that meeting, and I'm real good friends with the person. And I have an iPad, so I'm a Windows person, but I have an iPad, I have an Apple TV, and yeah, you can get all this stuff to work and share. And can I see my calendar on the iPad? You betcha. Can I add new entries? You betcha. So you can do all these things, and it's getting better and better between the platforms, because they recognize that they have to support it. Otherwise, people will say, I don't want to use your product because you're not as flexible as another solution. Okay. Any other question or comment? Well, thanks for coming, and January will be on scams there. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.